heard the book about JFK.
Well, yeah, that's legit, and people still to this day. I heard it on the radio the other day. Talk about JFK's assassination and Lee Harvey Oswald acting alone, and the evidence is there that if you look into it, Lee Harvey Oswald was pretty much a double agent for the CIA. He worked for the Russians inside Russia and a couple of other places. I think he might have even worked for the FBI, so he was kind of on both their books.
But wasn't that also a CIA ploy to recruit him, and then he was moulded as the patsy?
Yeah.
He was sent to Russia,
and they set him up. You know, they gave they put in his apartment, and all the evidence required to say he was a anti-American, hated the president, where he was actually being fed. He had a CIA handler. He had and I think they gave him the gun. They then conveniently he was killed that day by the police in the bunker, and they're like, okay, well, we can pin it on him. They worked out that the shot didn't actually come from him. He wasn't a very good shot, apparently. So there's theories that there was someone in the drain or on the bridge, or there was the grassy knoll. And there was all those theories, but they had those people in position if the other things fell apart. But yeah, it kind of goes back to the Cold War and the Cuban Missile Crisis and Bay of Pigs and all of that, where JFK was. It's a real kind of James Bond plot where he was speaking with Nikolai. What's his name? Khrushchev. He was the Soviet premier at the time, and they were meeting under the White House. They had this secret letter system.
Had a secret phone line, didn't they?
Yeah. Doesn't RFK talk about that?
Yeah.
His uncle would always talk to this guy in Russia.
Well, RFK talks about him coming to dinner.
Yeah, and he's been a very exuberant, colourful man.
Yeah, and they pretty much not inadvertently, they did it on purpose to stop nuclear war.
Yeah,
and he risked a lot, and a lot of the people in the CIA and a lot of people around at the time, that military industrial kind of complex, they were all kind of saying, he's a traitor, he's got to go.
Yeah.
So they then devised this Lee Harvey Oswald. They thought, I don't know whether so he must have been doing okay as a CIA operative, but enough of a mess up to go, okay, we can pin it on this guy and make him look crazy, and he's a nut.
Well, he had a good history. He lived in Russia and obviously had links to communism and a very easy person that people could identify as the enemy or as a traitor.
Yeah. And that was all the CIA set up. Have him implicated in all this commie sort of background.
I hear just before the shooting, he spent a fair bit of time down in Mexico, which was known as like a real CIA spy sort of meeting ground, I guess.
That's where they were doing the deals with him.
Exactly, all the dodgy deals.
Yeah.
A lot of damning stuff there, isn't there?
Yeah.
And then the whole bullet thing.
Oh, the
magic bullet. There's only 2 bullets. So, so they say only 2 bullets hit. I think they say there's 3 shots fired, supposedly all from Oswald from the book depository window.
Yeah. Because
they found 3. They admit to finding 3 cartridges, like spent shells from the bullets. So I think their story is the first one misses, the second one hits
from the front.
Sorry?
The second one hits from the front.
Yep. So his head goes behind and then side, doesn't
it? But they say it goes in from the back, comes out of the chest, then hits that Senator
Johnson, is it?
Connolly, was it?
Connolly.
Yeah.
Hits him, goes through his chest, comes out of his chest, goes back to front or front to back, then sort of takes a right turn, hits him in the wrist.
Yeah.
And then deflects again
into his thigh,
into his leg or his thigh. They're saying like one bullet essentially causes like 7 wounds,
Yeah, sorry.
and then supposedly they recover the bullets afterwards, and ballistics people like, this doesn't look like a bullet that's, you know, travelled through one human body, let alone fucking in and out 7 times.
Because it was perfectly in shape, wasn't
And
it?
the trajectory of how it all went, and then they were saying like that versus the last shot, which supposedly hit him in the head. You know, he obviously did get shot in the head. They were saying the angles that they seemed like they came from were different.
Yeah.
There's a lot of damning stuff.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
A lot of damning stuff.
Because wasn't there some sort of theory that one of the his bodyguards on the back of his car, there's a shot from him.
Oh, okay.
Jackie, whatever, I think, talks about a shot directly behind them.
Right.
So whether or not he was the one who was the last, and because then he died suddenly after the event, the bodyguard.
There's a lot of suspicious deaths from witnesses afterwards.
Because you got all those witnesses that say they heard a gunshot or a bang from the grassy knoll direction.
Yeah.
And you can even, apparently there's even footage of the Zapruder tape, whatever, of people looking back to that grassy knoll spot.
Yeah.
I stood on the grassy knoll, and it's
oh yeah.
Oh, you've been there?
Yeah, when I went to
Dallas.
Dallas. Because I was fascinated by it.
Yeah.
And it's a perfect spot to see that motorcade.
Yeah.
It's a perfect.
So is that area sort of still quite similar? Is it like they haven't sort of developed it and changed it?
No.
Like that spot is a bit of a
still got grassy hill.
Yeah.
Still got everything the same. The book depository store's there.
Cool.
That's a museum. You go and have a look at that, and that's all like windowed off, and it's just got as if it was left that day, and it's got like a big glass screen sort of in front of it. Yeah. So
how is it that they've got him as a suspect within fucking like a couple of hours?
Yeah.
They've essentially caught the guy.
Yeah.
Like back in the 60s.
Yeah.
I don't think I could do that today. Like,
No.
It was a very quick response.
Yeah. And then you've got the whole Jack Ruby scenario where he come out and shot him straight away.
Yeah. Within 48 hours he was dead.
Yeah, and then they put him in prison or something.
Yeah.
And then they had a psychologist go and assess him, and who deemed him to be totally rational and clear thinking.
Yep.
But then, how did Jack Ruby die? He got
I can't remember.
did he commit suicide? Because they reckon that he was also not a victim or a unwilling participant in that MK Ultra program where they were dosing people with LSD
How crazy was that?
and assessing their results. I mean, that's another conspiracy.
Imagine talking about that, like if you knew something about that before that came out, and it's been proven beyond a doubt now, we know 100% that happened. The CIA put fucking LSD in everyday Americans, you know, water, food, whatever. Imagine if you had been talking about that before that was proven. People were like, you are a fucking lunatic.
Yeah.
You are an absolute tinfoil hat nutcase.
Yeah.
Like, oh, no, we did actually give a bit, you know.
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
But the
fucking
bit,
LSD in housewives, you know.
yeah, or what they were doing was they were getting prostitutes
drinks of
to
fucking
put it-
Johns and that.
Yeah, and then they had these.
Crazy.
The prostitutes would take the fellas back to certain hotels,
Yeah.
and the hotels had corridors behind a mirrored wall,
Yeah.
and so you had people behind this mirror assessing the behaviour of the Johnny after she just gave him a drink with LSD in it.
Yeah.
You know, this whole concept.
Yeah.
This
And
is,
they were massive doses too.
yeah,
They weren't giving them like a little tipple of LSD. Like,
Oh,
I
no.
don't know too much about
Well,
the dosing, but they were giving them like fucking heaps.
yeah. A lot of them were jumping out of
Yeah.
5-story buildings and,
Freaking out,
and
yeah.
killing themselves. You know, like pretending they could fly. You know,
Wow.
if an intelligence agency can do this sort of shit,
Yeah.
yes, why can't you then believe or consider the fact that
Yeah.
they're behind other certain events?
Yeah.
You know, like 9/11.
And what are they trying to achieve out of MK Ultra? They're trying to achieve like fucking mind control.
Yeah, they were. Yeah,
That's not really like. I understand that. Just mind control. Okay.
yeah.
You
Well, that's
go, fucking what?
who was that guy that killed the cult leader that killed all those people?
Jones.
Nah, no,
Jonestown Massacre.
no, not
David Koresh.
no. What's his name? Fucking famous. He killed all those people. Charles Manson.
Oh.
Yeah, who recruited all those young people to do all those murders.
Yep.
He was also a part of that MK Ultra program.
Crazy.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Mm.
Legit.
Yeah, that's a fact. And they were telling him what to do. They actually reckon he was committing these crimes or helping these and leading these young people commit these murders, and then they were putting him back in prison. So they're letting him out to do this experimental shit with LSD, whatever they were doing under the MK Ultra program, and then letting him back in.
Wow.
Yeah.
Insane.
Mm.
Yeah.
Poof.
Truth is more interesting than fiction sometimes, hey? Like,
Yeah.
you just
mate.
hear about that shit, but like, if they're capable of that, there's not really anything where you go like, oh, they wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
Like,
Mm.
it's not insignificant.
No.
And that was quite a large scale.
I wonder if.
It wasn't like one or two guys who went to see prostitutes and they were given LSD. It was quite a widespread thing.
Yeah.
Like, they were giving it to everyday Americans as well. It wasn't just, guys going to see a prostitute. Or
Yeah.
whatever. It was quite, it was pretty crazy. It ran for quite a long time.
Yeah.
That'd be a good night for some blokes. LSD.
Maybe not with what they were doing to you.
No.
I mean, imagine the doses that they were being given, and not knowing what was going on to you. Like, imagine not knowing
you'd
that
think
you've
you
been
just
dosed with
lost your
LSD.
mind.
Yeah, you'd be tripping.
I imagine. Yeah.
You'd be thinking something's going on with me. I'm dying.
Yeah,
Maybe
right.
you
You're right.
think,
It's
I don't
different
know,
when it's a difference when you take it yourself.
You're
and
aware
you,
of it
and
coming.
you're aware, okay, it's going to happen whenever, and that's happening. Okay, it's the drug.
Yeah.
I'll work my way through it. But if you don't know, you're right. I didn't really think of that at all.
You would fucking lose your mind.
You would.
Yeah.
You go, what the fuck is happening?
Yeah.
Yeah, and kill yourself.
Yeah, crazy. But like, you wouldn't think that went through like ethics approval, would you?
Yeah,
Placebo double-blind study.
yeah. And wasn't that something behind the whole hippie movement as well? Didn't they? The CIA blamed the hippie movement to enable them for the government to
Cannabis.
to decriminalise and make illegal
So apparently,
certain drugs.
in the early days, the anti-war movement was quite a sort of respectable white-collar sort of people who were coming out against it, who looked quite, palatable to the American society. And I think they sort of went, well, this is no fucking good. Like, these guys look pretty, legit, and they're going to get a following. So insert a few real counterculture,
Yeah,
and associate it, like you say, with the drug culture and all that sort of thing. And then all of a sudden it's a bit more discredited, and you've got,
yeah,
inverted commas, dirty hippies
yeah,
sort of flying the flag for it.
Yeah.
And again, that gets infiltrated with same sort of thing, like some agents who steer it in a direction.
yeah.
And then they can sort of manage to discredit it and all that sort of stuff. So.
Yeah. It's so many underlying things. 9/11 spins me out. And actually, before we go on to 9/11, talking about JFK and then how Jonesy just said there that he was, the Bay of Pigs and all that, and how they were sort of out to get him pretty much after that. He was against the Vietnam War, wasn't he? He did.
Yeah, well, he was pulling people out.
Yeah,
I think when he came into office, he asked for a summary of like how many sort of people they had on the ground over there, and it was something like 1,000.
Yep.
He was essentially like, that's way too many, because they'd had something like 38 casualties or some very low number.
Yep.
He's like, oh, well, no loss of American life is acceptable, and we're going to get right out of this.
Yep.
And then pretty much immediately after he was killed, so Lyndon Johnson wasn't
Yes.
it, becomes the
Yes.
president,
Yep.
and immediately it starts ramping up massively.
Yeah.
Um,
And that was that whole Gulf of Tonkin incident, and having a look into that,
Yeah.
the Johnson government claimed that on August 2nd, the US Maddox, which was a destroyer ship, was torpedoed by North Vietnamese torpedo ships.
Yep.
And then the administration then said that the Maddox was attacked again 2 days later on the 4th. And so then that got President Johnson to pass the Gulf of Tonkin resolution in the US Congress.
Mhm.
And so that then was pretty much a declaration of war. So
Yeah.
that then sent American troops into Vietnam.
It's a golden ticket to send combat troops and escalate. And,
Yep. And then so back in the early 2000s, there were 200 government documents that were declassified and released by the NSA into the public. And it showed there was no attack whatsoever on the 2nd of August or the 4th of August in 1964, I think it might have been. And that the US officials had distorted the truth for the sake of just getting Americans into Vietnam.
Wow.
Okay?
Crazy.
That is fucking crazy. So Here's another conspiracy theory that then in the year 2000, through declassification of documentation, is deemed true.
Yeah. Look, that comes back to, because when did JFK get in?
Well, that's what we just were referring to.
Yeah. Okay.
When you just
ducked out.
ducked out for a wee break. We were just talking about how his demise, his assassination was a part of his
getting out of there.
Not wanting to enter Vietnam and withdrawing whatever troops they did have at that time.
And then Cuba, and then wow.
Yeah. Well, I'm just reading here as well. That JFK stuff ties into. So obviously he was against sort of like the CIA doing all their super dodgy things, like trying to overthrow the Cuban government with the Bay of Pigs, and he sacked, I think, the CIA guy that was responsible for that. And he was also, that was around the time that Eisenhower gave that famous talk about the military-industrial complex.
Well, he left, didn't he?
So he left. So in his farewell speech, which was 1961, he essentially came out and said, we need to be very, very careful about this military-industrial complex. And, you know, all
very famous speech, that one. Yeah.
Very famous. You know, all their nefarious activities. And Eisenhower, a guy who came from a war background, like obviously a famous general in the Second World War, came out and saying we need to be really careful of these guys. And so, you know, JFK's looking at all these different bits of information and the Cuban stuff, and you know, essentially going against this military-industrial complex, you know, and not ramping up the Vietnam War and all that sort of stuff. And then turns up dead, and
he was duped.
A lot of
he was duped by the CIA to invade.
Exactly.
And
yes.
he was like, these guys.
That was his last kind of thing, wasn't it? He's like, I'm done with you guys. This is insanity.
Yeah.
You know, we're not doing this. But and then as soon as he's gone, everything flips over again.
What a massive
LBJ in, and he starts up with everything, and the military-industrial complex and all the intelligence services get what they want.
Well,
business as usual.
Him getting in, there's also talk in that book of him just showing zero remorse that he died, and I think Jackie Onassis talks about it too. He was callous. He didn't. It's almost like he knew it was coming. You know.
What a massive turning point in the history of the world.
I reckon almost one of that we know about, maybe the biggest turning point in terms of the Western world.
Totally.
Because he was, she said, didn't he get inaugurated? That word. He made it happen, and she was there with the body. Something along those lines, that he had to get it done immediately.
I
can't remember what it was. It was.
Oh, LBJ did.
Yeah.
Right. So he had to get sworn in as the next.
And usually there's a process to get it done, and he immediately. It was almost over the body.
Right.
Yeah. I think Jackie was crying in the background. Or, you know,
wow.
Yeah.
He's there getting sworn in.
Sworn
hand
in.
on the Bible or whatever they do.
Yeah.
Wow.
I also heard a little snippet that the guy, I think it was the CIA guy, because Kennedy had already taken a broom to the services a bit and started letting a few people go. And I think the CIA fella who was involved with the Bay of Pigs thing, I think he had been stood aside, which made a lot of people in the services unhappy. And apparently there's quite compelling evidence that even though his official alibi shows that he was in, let's say, something like New York or some sort of capital city on the day of the killing, there's some quite compelling evidence with flight logs that he was in fact in Texas.
Yeah, I heard about this.
You know, Dallas.
Yeah.
Fuck, that's dodgy. Like, I mean, you can never prove any of that shit. Like,
but they did though.
Well,
with the flight documentation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it showed that.
Yeah, he was.
Fucking guy with a major axe to grind.
Yeah.
Working for a, let's say, organisation with a major axe to grind, with a very dodgy killing of a US president. And then they've got this guy, they've got Lee Harvey Oswald. So, okay, so if you say he did act alone, and you say that he was maybe working for the Russians, then there's absolutely no comeback to like Russia or anything else. He's dead now, so we'll just leave that be.
Yeah.
But
can you imagine if someone killed Joe Biden today and they found out, that was the guy that got sent over by Putin? Fucking the whole world would break loose.
Yeah.
Well, no, he's dead now, so we'll just leave that be. We won't investigate it. We won't look into it too much. We've got justice. It's like, are you kidding me?
Well, they
killed the president.
They know that the premier of the Soviet Union and JFK were meeting.
Yeah.
To avoid.
Yeah.
The Cold War escalating to be nuclear.
Yeah.
secretly.
Mm.
So it wasn't it wasn't a Russian thing,
No.
No,
which is what they painted it as
Yeah.
being.
Yeah.
it's probably more likely to be a mob thing than a Russian thing if you go down that like rabbit hole.
Yeah,
I reckon there's a good chance that the mafia could have knocked him off.
yeah, there was talk of that,
There
wasn't
was
there?
talk of that. So there's all these little different possibilities.
Mm.
But, you
But
never know.
it's quite clear though, because they've released documents just in the last couple of years, haven't they? That they had withheld or declassified for a certain number of years,
Yeah,
and they still haven't released all of them.
no,
No.
But it is
haven't,
quite clear that it was a CIA involved incident. It's
It
quite.
seems like
I
it
think
to
it's
me
quite
as a-
accepted. It's accepted, isn't
Yeah.
it? I think even RFK talks about that.
yeah.
That it's now an official sort of with the release of these documents
Yeah.
that it is.
even the assassination of his father.
Oh,
That's
crazy.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
in the restaurant.
yeah, there were two. Was it CI guys, FBI guys, standing right there?
Handlers. Yeah.
Yeah. The
This
guy
guy's like a waiter or something, wasn't he? Or
yeah, and they
something.
didn't know why he got. He's like, I don't remember doing that. I
that
didn't
had
do
links
that.
to supposedly like maybe an MK Ultra like mind control type situation where the
Yeah.
guy's just like, I don't even know what I just did
Yeah.
there. Like I just shot.
Or it was those
you know?
two guys there, and they blamed it on this guy.
Yeah.
Because they whispered something in his ear or something as
Something
well.
weird, yeah. And he
yeah,
just walked over and shot him.
yeah,
That's very strange.
yeah, yeah.
A lot of tomfoolery going on.
Mm.
Mm.
Like it's not
Yeah.
exactly clear cut,
No,
straightforward, but
And then you got the assassination of Martin Luther King. I mean, was
yeah,
that was a CIA thing as well, apparently.
potentially, yeah.
Potentially.
John Lennon potentially.
Yeah.
having too much of a voice.
Yeah.
Needed to quieten it down.
Yeah. Because wasn't Martin Luther King, didn't he make a letter or something? Didn't he write a letter that is so outrageously not wouldn't have been written from him? It's like this made up letter.
Oh,
That
I haven't looked into that one too much. No.
yeah, I haven't either. I'd have to
Yeah.
have to go and look through it.
So what else we got, lads? What other
Well,
ones are coming up?
The big one is the moon landing.
But there's
Yeah.
a few. There's
So you
a
reckon
few big ones. There's
Oh,
the
yeah,
moon
mate,
landing.
we could
Yeah.
talk about this shit for the
That's
next bloody
massive.
10 weeks. But the
Yeah.
moon landing,
Oh,
So what do you think it happened?
yeah, let's kick it around the table.
no, I don't.
No.
No. I think man has been to the moon since, potentially, but I don't think in 1968, whatever it was, I don't think that they did.
So you
I base that fact on, I have a look at the vessel that they landed on. It looked like it had been wrapped up,
Aluminium foil.
aluminium foil, you know, like this
Tin foil?
Tin foil.
Oh,
It's
tin foil.
So light and then a lot of the footage I've seen of flags flapping in the wind, the astronauts jumping, pretending to take the moon jump, and they're actually, you can see shining wire on above them. It looks like they've collapsed, they fall over, and then they're being dragged along by this wire. They're not actually jumping. They reckon
is
that
that a tether just so that they don't? Because who knows? They're getting off the moon at the moon. They don't know what's going to happen. They might float off into the distance.
but where's the tether coming from?
It's a spaceship.
The
Isn't it
spaceship's only this little alfoil
This is
thing
when you're
that's
like
just,
way away from it, I think.
yeah.
Oh, okay, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Eh?
They reckon that footprint, that's the famous footprint of Neil Armstrong's boot, is not
Yeah.
the same tread. And one thing that I love is that they're talking to the president back at Earth. This is 1968. I can't even get a reception on my phone in Bali when I go on holiday.
Mate, this is the biggest one that I question, is how the fuck are we getting live TV
Yep,
and audio?
yep,
The whole world is watching in real time off the moon in 1969.
yep.
Now, I'll back up a little bit and say I hope that we did go to the moon, and I think that we might have, but there might have been some fuckery going on as well, which I'll probably get into once.
No.
I'll kick it around to you.
So you think that maybe they went to the moon, they didn't have any footage, and they just
I think,
did it in a basement?
I hope, and I think man's definitely been to the moon. Whether it was that day or that month or whatever, I hope it was all legit. But I think possibly what might have happened is that perhaps they might have filmed something somewhere else for release. But I'm hoping that in the background they did go there as well.
Yeah. Okay.
I feel like maybe the technology, like Roo said, wasn't there, like getting the president on the phone, calling from their little alfoil tin
Yeah.
fucking thing. They're
That's
getting
a bit of a
comms.
setup.
Well, the
yeah.
president was talking on a handheld,
Yeah, the red
old style phone.
Yeah.
With the ring, the dial ring thing, where you press number one and go.
What's the number for the moon again?
Yeah, he's there talking on a handheld
And
phone.
obviously they would have had access to the best comms guys in the business, but so
But are you thinking that that's a setup for TV? Like,
I
they
think
actually
it just
went
made it more palatable for the worldwide community.
And I also think that there was such a race between the US and Russia to get to the moon
That was the
that
thing.
they had to quickly get something going to show that. Well, I think Buzz Aldrin had already been there. Buzz Aldrin, the Russian astronaut, had already been to the moon.
Buzz was an
He was the
American guy.
American
I mean,
The cosmonaut. Whatever his name
Wasn't there a Russian that supposedly was there first or something? I don't know.
I don't know.
He was
But I just think this
He
race,
was rushing to get there.
this race between the two superpowers to get to the moon
Yeah.
led to this quick little fucking Hollywood production.
Yeah.
I understand that. I get that. There was definitely.
Hang on. So before we get into it,
Oh,
yes or no?
yes. I haven't looked into it too much.
Oh,
I'm going with yes.
The caveat. Okay. Cool. So we've got a no, a yes, and a yes but.
I think my yes but is the same. I think they went there. I think the rest of it was a setup. But then again, I don't know.
Yeah, I hope they went there because it's just cool.
Yeah.
Have you seen the video footage of a lot of the stuff that
See,
tries
I
to
haven't
debunk it?
seen
Mate.
it.
So when I looked into it, I came across I don't know, sort of 5 or 6 like big things.
Yeah.
So you touched on already. So the flag, sort of
that's
waving
always
around a
big
bit in like 0 atmosphere.
Yeah.
There was a big one about obviously the moon has no atmosphere, and they're filming these guys bouncing around the moon, and you can't see any stars or anything in the background.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously the moon has no light pollution, no atmosphere, so people argue you should be able to see a fucking ton of stars and Milky Way and whatever.
Yeah.
There is shadows, so when you look at the film and like where the shadows are thrown, there's the argument that, well, if the sun is the only sort of light source coming on, then all the shadows sort of been in a certain direction and they go like in a different way.
Yes.
There is the famous photo of the close-up of, I think it's Buzz Aldrin's spaceman helmet,
Yeah.
and you can see a reflection, and you can kind of see, I think, like the lunar orbiter, and then you can see another astronaut obviously taking it. So there was Buzz Aldrin, there was who was the second guy?
Neil Armstrong.
Neil Armstrong, and then there was Michael Collins back in the, orbiting. So you can see either Buzz or Neil, whoever the other guy was, the reflection, but there's no camera in his hand taking the photo of the,
Right. Yeah.
so where does the photo come from?
Uh-huh.
Cameras weren't exactly real small in 1969, like fucking space cameras designed to operate in, ultra low.
It's no GoPro 10.
No GoPro 10. So there's that. You said it before, the footprint. So as you see his feet come down off the LEM, the lunar module, you can see the tread pattern that the boot would make, and then later on you can see the famous, obviously, tread of, in the moon doesn't seem to match.
Yep.
These are, sorry to interrupt, these are a lot of fuck-ups, right?
A lot of
But
fuck-ups.
that's, like,
A lot of fuck-ups.
If you're going to stage something, get it right. Like, you can pick holes in it. So this doesn't look good. This doesn't look good for the moon landing.
It doesn't look good. And then the last one is just the comms, like we already spoke about. Fucking dialing up the president on the fucking moon and chatting with him and live TV
And a
and shit.
live TV stream.
So
you
I'd like to
me.
think that they did do it and they were capable of it, but the technology either wasn't there or it was a backup plan so that everyone thought they'd gone if it was a catastrophic failure.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that was some,
So maybe they filmed it, in a Nevada desert or a fucking studio or whatever.
Yeah.
To sort of toe the line.
Why
But I
haven't
really
they?
hope they went there.
Why haven't
I
they
think-
been much since then?
Well, that's the thing. They haven't been since 1971 or 2, and they claim cost and whatever. But
Don't they want to look at
It was the closest.
the
dunno,
sea of tranquility and
don't you want to have
whatnot?
a poke around out there?
Yeah. What minerals are up there? Let's mine that.
Yeah, or why aren't the Chinese going out there? Maybe they are. I don't know. Did the Russians ever even land a craft? on
Yeah,
the
they
moon?
did. The Russians did.
Like,
Well, they
cosmonauts
said
and
they
stuff?
did.
Did that?
Yeah.
I didn't look into
Well,
that.
what the Red Hot Chili Peppers say, space may be the final frontier, but it's made in a Hollywood
Ooh,
basement.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then there's all that weird Stanley Kubrick stuff. I don't know if you guys
Space Odyssey.
came across that. But yeah, the Space Odyssey, but then there's the talk that he had been commissioned by the government or the CIA or whoever to film it. And in one of his movies, it might be the Space Odyssey, it might be something else, there's all these references that people have drawn, like these little things like, oh, that's code for this and that with regards to like a faked moon landing.
Yeah, right.
I don't know.
Yeah, right.
So, do you have any more compelling evidence? Because I'm on the fence here.
No, but I have seen video footage of the astronauts trying to do. So again, there's a video on the moon, which I find it quite hard to believe. A portable video on the moon, and they're filming them do this. They're having a great time doing the jumping, and then one of them falls, and he, instead of like getting to his feet, he's actually being dragged along his toes are dragging along the surface, and you can see this quick little flash of red up above him, and it's like a wire.
So like a glint of a wire, sort of catching the light or something.
Yeah, and there's numerous occasions of that happening, and then you'll see them try to do a very unnatural human movement in a jump. And it's like they're being lifted and propelled, like they do in modern movies today. You know, like lifting people up with wires and
like
shit like
Chinese kung fu movie where dudes are doing these crazy
that.
jumps and
hanging in the air.
Yeah.
flying lotus.
So where could you find that? I haven't really looked. I'm going to look.
I could send it to you because
I
I reckon
watched a
I've
few
saved
YouTube
it.
videos last night, and there was all sorts of things of the guys falling over and bouncing, and there's one where you can see a lanyard sort of cable thing going across his shoulder. But the only thing with that is you never know with
have they been doctored?
Fucked around with some nerd who's really good at.
So if there's no gravity on the moon, right?
I think they said it's 1/6.
Right.
So there is some.
So it will still hold you down.
So you won't float away.
Yep. Right. Because you sort of think that the height they're jumping or leaping, is sort of why they're not getting pulled away.
Keep on going.
Yeah.
Not too high.
But I guess a sixth of the Earth's gravitational pull is strong enough.
Because I think they were saying those suits that they had to wear weighed 180 pounds.
Right.
80 kilos. 90
yeah,
kilos.
Yes.
Wow.
So, and then plus their body weight.
Yeah. So you're looking at
maybe that was what.
So maybe 160 kilos with your suit and your person.
Yeah.
What, 6 of that? What would that be? Sort of, I don't know, 40? No, not even.
Yeah, I don't know.
Maths, no.
But I don't know. There's just a lot of footage there that I've had a look at, and I don't buy it. No, I just reckon it was staged.
Yeah,
and I think if you think about it, at that time, all they needed, like you just said, Jonesy, I mean, if you're going to pull something off, get it right.
Yeah.
But I think at that time, all they needed was to convince the public that it had happened, and then deal with it later on. Yeah. You know, they just had to prove, and at that time, that sort of movie, sort of Hollywood sort of standard, could have been quite advanced, you know, to trick people, which it did. But now you look at it and you're thinking, hang on. The evidence is just
doesn't make a lot of sense.
Too obvious.
So with all that, you're not on the Smith theory of it happened, but we didn't have any proof, so we faked that. It was real, but we faked the scene. Does that make sense? You know
Stage managed it.
Staged it so that it looked like we could show everyone, and everyone was
possibly or
USA.
Well, you were saying earlier you thought we've been at some stage, didn't you? Like, whether it was a long time later or
yeah. Have you seen the recent one? I think it might have been last year. The footage of the Indian astro department, whatever, landing on the moon. It is fucking hilarious. It is. It's like this, you know, Space Invaders. It's like a little spaceship like that, superimposed. And it's got these little rockets underneath it, and it looks so fake. And it's landing, so the rockets are going down, and it's going towards the surface of the moon.
It's
and
like
it is
Thunderbirds.
It does. It looks just like that, mate.
See 2 little wires coming down.
Yeah, and you've got all these other Indian scientists on the other camera going, like pumping their arms in the space lab in India.
Right.
And you've got this artificial, ridiculously looking fucking thing. I'll send it to you. Hey, I've got it. I think I saved it on my phone. It is outrageously false.
And then what films that? Is there something hovering just above the surface of the moon that films it, or something like a second vehicle? Or
yeah, don't know.
No,
so something's already landed
to
to take a photo of it.
media department lands first.
Yeah.
Send the drone out.
Yeah, they just had an eBay drone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of those space ones. Yeah, it's interesting. I hope we've been.
Yeah, I think
really
we
captured the imagination of people, didn't it? And
yeah,
like,
I think we've been, but I just don't think at that time.
yeah, when they talk about like the amount of computing power that they reckon the spaceship had, they reckon it's like the power of a calculator or something crazy, like less than the power of a wristwatch or something ridiculous.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Well, that makes it even more amazing.
Yeah.
When they
Yeah.
got there.
Hmm.
You're
It's
not-
an interesting one.
You're not convincing me here.
Like,
I'll send you some stuff, mate.
if you said that they haven't been at all and it was completely a hoax and to trick the Russians or for whatever reason, then you have to say that your Buzz Aldrins, Neil Armstrongs, Mike Collins, and all the other numerous astronauts that went all have to be lying, bald faced lying, not like we did go but we also did this just because of national security.
People lie.
Oh mate, 100% people
Yeah.
lie.
Lance Armstrong kept it up for a long time.
Yeah.
You know,
And what's
there you go.
what's to say that the old thing about you spill your guts will kill your family.
Of course, yeah.
That goes on.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting that we never went back.
Well,
Yeah.
that's the thing that I'm curious about. Why don't they, even just for exploration purposes and scientific purposes, if they went there in 1968, why aren't they just going there on a regular basis now? And why aren't we seeing footage like on the news? Oh, just a recent trip to the moon. They found this little lake here, or this this remnant of a lake or something.
Yeah.
Why aren't we seeing anything of regular
Yeah.
like trips in modern day?
Mm.
Which you would think, because they're so fascinated about Mars,
Yeah.
they still could learn about the moon.
Yeah.
Mm.
So that was.
Yeah, you would. Yeah, maybe they'd argue like expense, just cost or whatever.
Yeah.
But
But they're sending shit to Mars,
yeah, they want to. Yeah, Elon wants to, doesn't he?
and cost is
Wants to live there.
well, the Challenger. What's that Challenger rocket, or the what they have going up into what's that spaceship called? The what was that first one that came out in the 80s? The aeroplane one. And it was
Yeah, the ones that returned, like
it was lifted by rockets.
and then it glided back to Earth and
Yeah.
landed on a giant runway.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the Challenger one that blew up in the Challenger
Yeah.
disaster.
What was that originally called?
I can't remember the
It
name.
was like
but
in the 80s, I think that was.
yeah, they had the
It was getting propelled by rockets, and then once it got
blasted off vertically up and then
Yes.
glide back to Earth.
like a plane.
So it got
Yeah.
into the atmosphere, didn't it?
Yeah.
And then come
Yeah,
back down.
and so then there's evidence, there's footage of astronauts attached to that in space.
Mm.
So why couldn't that go and land or send a small little craft down to the moon
Yeah.
while it's up there, and then send some footage?
We've already done that. We've already been to the moon.
Oh,
Don't need to do it
yeah.
again.
So is that
Been
what-
there, done that.
yeah,
fuck it.
don't worry. Let's
fuck
just
it.
let's just get to the atmosphere this time.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You're going backwards.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think of that bloody lunar module up there, that buggy thing with all the wheels that drives around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that on the moon?
Yeah,
That's
that's
at
what
Mars.
I'm driving around in a little bloody go-kart up there.
Oh, Buzz and the boys.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, maybe not Buzz, but one of the subsequent.
Yeah.
Oh, afterwards, right?
Because wasn't there something about that as well? Wasn't there something about
Because that must have
buggy?
been a significantly bigger bloody.
Craft.
Not like that tinfoil one, the first one. That
Yeah, well, how did the buggy
hands,
get
those
down
little
there?
spindly things with the fucking tinfoil. Like, I can't imagine them opening up the side of that and pulling the buggy out. So
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a very good explanation for that. I just haven't looked into it. But
Yeah, right. Maybe
they
the
have something.
mothership hovering above lowered the buggy down.
Yeah, maybe they went into space and they found shit that they didn't want to,
Mm.
something bad. I thought, well, we better stick a pin in this.
Yeah, but the moon's not really far away, is it? Comparatively speaking to other
It's very close.
celestial bodies.
Yeah,
Yeah.
celestial bodies. Nice.
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah. What about 9/11? Should we touch that? Hey,
That's quite a controversial one, isn't
is
it?
it? Why?
It's
I just
very
find
hard.
it.
It's
I just
very
find it
hard.
fascinating.
It's very hard to believe the government would set that up to kill 3,500 people and destroy the country for current years. Still, there's probably cancers popping up all over the place. From that, I
feel like
I don't know.
I feel like if that was a thing, I don't think they'd worry about that too much.
No.
Oh, they probably didn't think about that.
Mm.
It's,
What
I
about the
don't-
opportunities that it created? So it enabled them to
you
bring
can
in
get
the
in that.
Patriot Act.
You
The
can
Patriot
get that
Act.
in anyway. Weapons of
Oh.
mass destruction. That was another.
Weapons of mass destruction. There's another one.
But
The
if
invade
you-
to invade Iraq and overthrow Saddam Hussein.
All of that was just a real shit fight for that sort of
That
from
period,
what the
wasn't
year,
it?
you know,
Yeah.
just rounded off 2000 up to the current day. What a fucking shit fight.
Yeah.
Like even how they left Afghanistan recently. Just,
See ya.
been there 20 years. Like you tell me you haven't got a good exit strategy where you can not
Yeah.
fucking just leave all your gear there and get people killed and have dudes hanging off the side of your fucking airplanes and
Yeah.
shit. Like,
Well, we talked about JFK's assassination being a pivotal part in world history. I think 9/11 is also.
oh,
yeah.
Because-
the world changed
Because
on that day.
what that
Absolutely,
brought in,
absolutely
what
changed.
that allowed governments to do was, steal a lot of people's freedoms for the sake of security, and the public were quite willing to hand it
Patriot
over.
Act,
The Patriot Act
Yeah.
enabled that.
Yeah.
I just find a lot of things. We go back to the moon landing footage, the
Mm.
footage of September 11, particularly the Pentagon plane and the
Oh, yeah, the one that just
Pennsylvania.
completely disappears.
Yeah, the one was in Pennsylvania, that Sunset County
Flight
field,
93.
Flight 93. There is no remnant of an aircraft. So the Pentagon, they deemed that the air got so hot and that the plane hit the Pentagon so hard that it disintegrated on impact.
Yeah.
There's no luggage, there's no bodies, there's no clothing items, there's nothing.
Mm.
And if you have a look at the security footage of the Pentagon, they've got a security camera, you will see a flash.
It misses it, doesn't it? Because the frame rate's so slow that you essentially don't see the plane going in.
No, you
Yeah.
can't. You'll
No.
see it. You'll see a flash, but the flash is at ground level,
Yeah.
and it's horizontal to the ground. It's like a missile being shot into the side of the building.
Mm.
It's definitely not a plane. A plane's going to come down at a 45-degree angle, pretty much, or on an angle. This is a flash
Yeah.
that goes like that,
Yeah.
real quick,
Yeah.
and it destroys that part of the building.
One of the yeah. Sorry, mate. Go ahead.
And sorry, also in that Pennsylvania field, all there is just a big dirty hole in the ground.
Mm.
No luggage, no nothing, no aircraft. I mean, if an aircraft hits the ground, you're going to see a nacelle of an engine, you're going to see parts of it. There's nothing.
You think so?
Just
yeah.
this big hole in the ground.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
You've got the most, sorry mate, you've got the most heavily fortified security airspace in the world, and apparently there were Air Force exercises going on that day, which left a lot of fighters out away from that New York area.
Oh yeah. Yep.
But at some point they would have known it was hijacked, right?
They did. Yeah.
So wouldn't you shoot it down?
You'd think so, wouldn't you?
When you
That's
shoot it down,
one.
is that,
That's one conspiracy theory.
you're going to save the tenth
one-
the amount of lives. Say there's 300 people on there.
So with regards to
that-
Flight 93, one of the conspiracies is that in fact the terrorists didn't, that the people on board potentially didn't try and rush the cockpit, which caused the terrorists to crash it. There's like an alternative conspiracy theory, which is that the US just shot it down because that plane was destined for, I think, the White House. Is that right? They wanted to crash it into the White House.
Yeah, yeah.
Obviously, that's a pretty big morale blow if you crash it into the big white building.
Yeah.
So there is a theory, conspiracy theory, if you will, that the Air Force just lined up and shot it down.
It was already done.
Well, as in they just decided, like, we can't let this fucking thing hit the White House. Yes, it does have, X, Y, Z Americans and other Westerners on board, but,
Yeah.
at least
The greater good.
greater good. Yeah.
But
So we'll shoot
why
it down.
wouldn't they do that for the other ones, for the towers?
So that one had a lot longer. So obviously the
Space.
first plane that hit the towers, no one knew it was coming.
Right. But wouldn't they know? Wouldn't air traffic be going,
Mate, these are great questions
like,
you're asking.
Definitely.
why
Like,
have you changed your trajectory?
Yeah.
but I don't think it was in anyone's imagination if you're a controller going, who's going to fly that fucking thing into the World Trade? I don't think that
but
was.
something was up. Like they
Wouldn't-
wouldn't know.
yes,
Wouldn't
yeah.
Wouldn't a
100%.
pilot be able to call an immediate mayday or something that he's been overtaken?
Maybe. Yeah.
The guys that overtook those aeroplanes, they were inexperienced pilots who
Yep.
even failed their pilots' tests.
Yep.
So they couldn't even land little Cessna aircrafts
No,
in
they
there.
couldn't take off and land. Yeah.
But they didn't need
But
to.
they're
They're just
being,
throwing it into the building.
well, they had to control it at some stage. They're controlling a 767, two of them,
Yeah.
and they couldn't even fly a smaller aircraft in their lessons. and I think they failed their lessons.
He banked pretty hard to get in there, didn't they?
Yeah,
So what are they suggesting that the video footage is not real?
There have been claims about
Choose
that.
your poison. There's heaps.
Right.
Choose your conspiracy.
Yeah,
Okay.
Your sub-conspiracy within
there
the
have been
conspiracy.
claims that some of the aeroplane actual imagery is not real. So you see the aeroplane actually
Just blowing up.
disappear into the side of the building, and then you've got explosives which portray the flame being detonated.
Yeah.
Another thing is they found one of the pilot's passports in the debris in New York, which is pretty fucking convenient.
And that didn't burn.
No,
One of those non-flammable ones.
yeah,
Yeah.
non-flammable passport, but you've
Melted
got these
some
metal steel beams that melted.
One thing I did find weird is that like the wingspan of those giant aircraft, I don't know what model they were, but they were obviously jets
767, yeah.
that flew into the towers. I was surprised that nothing came out the sides or went through. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like maybe a wingtip keeps on flying, or
Yeah.
maybe a bit of undercarriage kind of bounces its way on through. Or I understand those buildings definitely had like a very solid core in the middle, but the wingspan of a jet is very large.
Yeah.
Obviously not as large as the building, I assume, but I just thought maybe something might have
Oh,
flown
for
out.
sure, and
Or maybe, I
particularly
don't know.
particularly with the
Maybe.
construction of those twin towers, the strongest steel was actually built on the outside of the building. So normally a tall building
right,
will
is that
have
right?
its strongest steel built in the core.
Core,
So you
yeah.
know where your elevator shaft generally goes. But because of the height of these buildings, they had the outside as the strongest steel as
Right.
opposed to the middle.
Yeah, okay.
So you would think what you're saying there, Smithy, is an aircraft hitting the strongest steel part of a building.
Yeah.
There are going to be bits that are going to fly off.
I thought something might have.
It's not going to fly into and disappear into that strong metal frame like it did. And this is a real far stretch. But if you just Google high school gym whale diagram, if you Google that, have you seen that footage of this technology which has created this whale come out of a school gymnasium?
Oh yeah, it's crazy.
And you
Whole
see all the
technology.
hear all the kids going, and this whale breaches. It comes out of the school gym floor and it lands back in the water, and you see it disappear in the gym floor. Who's to say that same technology wasn't used on that day?
Yeah, look, you never know, do you? You never know. Like one thing I was saying to CJ earlier in preparation for this is I find it so weird that the footage of the very first aircraft to hit the first twin tower, there's almost no footage of it. There's basically the one you always see is there's a reporter down on the streetscape talking to someone, and kind of just out of focus up in the top left corner of the screen, you see the plane fly into it.
Yep.
And I'm like, it's fucking New York City in the 21st century, like just after the year 2000. I would have thought there'd be cameras everywhere. Like people had phones back then.
Yep.
You know, camcorders are relatively inexpensive. You tell me all the buildings didn't have some sort of. I feel like there's not enough footage. It seems strange to me.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And well, there's a thing that footage was taken with not an electronic device. There was a footage taken with like a video cassette recorder, and all you see is the flame.
Right.
And that's been now produced or released digitally, and there's no plane evident in the footage whatsoever. You just see a flame. But other footage would suggest that now with digital enhancement that a plane could be put into that footage.
Yeah. It's interesting. I don't know what to make of it, but there's like everything else. There's some weird.
Well, what's your take on Building 7? So Building 7 was the FBI building or the CIA building, and it had a lot of other government financial departments in it.
That sort of collapsed for no reason.
It collapsed for no reason, and they claimed that it got sparks from the Twin Towers, which then took a light, and they reckon that building collapsed because of fire. There's heaps of evidence and witnesses to say that they heard multiple boom, 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 boom.
Charges like
Demolition
I've heard
charges.
that. Yeah, it does sound pretty sketchy. And there's some particularly sensitive stuff in that building,
Mate,
isn't there?
Mate, the day before September 11 happened, the Pentagon announced that they could not account for $2.3 million.
Oh yeah.
That just went missing. But records of that were kept in that CIA or FBI, whatever, financial records department. in Building 7. There were a lot of other secret documents in that
The
building.
FBI were keeping CIA documents.
No, sorry, it could be, I think it's CIA, not FBI, I'm just correcting
Oh,
myself.
right.
It's not both of them, it's one of them.
So it's the same, yeah, right, okay.
$2.3 million just went missing.
It's
That was
interesting.
Rumsfeld, I think. Rumsfeld announced that, and the Pentagon had no idea where it's gone.
So what's the most plausible narrative as to the reason why it was a government thing? Because there was a link to Bush and Bin Laden, wasn't there?
Yeah.
They
Well,
were family buddies or something?
well, there's a big link between the Bin Ladens and US government officials.
Yeah.
I think there is a family link, isn't there, with the
Yeah, there's a
Saudis?
whole book about Bush and
Yeah.
what's it called?
So whether we're talking now about another Lee Harvey Oswald patsy scenario that Osama bin Laden was set up as the patsy for this
Yeah.
operation,
Or
and
he
to
didn't do
blame
something
him.
the government wanted, and okay, well,
Yeah, well,
around
look at the death of him. Like, apparently these 5 or whatever, how many armoured troopers helicoptered into his complex and shot him, and then he was buried at sea where no one ever saw his body. Like, they just wrapped him up and just dropped him off the boat.
That seems odd.
That's really odd.
Mm.
And they just claimed that was Islamic practice.
I thought it was because they didn't want to make him a martyr.
Well, why didn't they do the same thing with old mate from Iraq, Saddam Hussein? They
hung him, didn't
they hung him and actually publicly ridiculed him. Didn't they shove knives up his ass and shit? They did so much cruel stuff
Oh,
to
really?
that guy.
I don't know.
They did some really, really terrible
Yeah.
things to him.
I don't think he was a good guy.
No, but he,
He did work with the CIA back in the day
yeah,
Did he?
I think
to essentially combat the Iranians.
yeah,
So essentially, the CIA used him as a third party and
Yeah.
gave him a ton of military hardware and weapons and assistance and training to essentially bolster the Iraqi army. Because the Iraqi army at the time was like the 6th biggest army in the world or something. They were huge. They weren't like a little,
Yeah, right.
you know,
yeah.
little backwater military. They were bloody huge.
The
But
US,
that essentially all came from US support to
Yeah.
keep them busy with fighting the Iranians.
Yeah, and they
Iran,
did the
Iraq
same
war,
with
all that sort of stuff.
they did the same with the Taliban or,
Yeah.
or Osama bin Laden with the Russians.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They wanted
So
CIA trained.
it's on the end of, is it Rambo?
Oh yeah, Rambo 3.
Yeah, it says this is dedicated to the men
Brave
and women of
people
the
of Afghanistan.
Taliban
Mujahideen.
fighting.
yeah.
Fighting against.
Or Afghanistan, I think they say,
Yeah.
not Taliban. Yeah.
No, it says Taliban.
Really?
Yeah, I think so. Right, I'd have to find that, but maybe it's been removed now. But
Oh,
Fucking
I'm
old
sure
crappy
it's
VHS.
Yeah.
VHS
yeah,
tape
I'm
copies.
sure it said Afghanistan, not Taliban.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
either way,
But it's
Yeah.
very murky. But one thing you definitely can say is that the Patriot Act definitely came from the events after 9/11.
Yeah.
And, you know, like the NSA now in America is surveilling everyone all the time.
Yeah.
If you make a phone call, text message, any sort of electronic communication, that's all getting data logged and banked somewhere. They can look at all of it.
Yep.
So
It's now written.
citizens have lost all their rights to privacy
Yeah.
under the guise of like national security. That's not a conspiracy. That's
don't you think
a
they
truth.
could have brought
Yeah.
that in anyway?
No,
I think
like,
the Americans
can
are
you
pretty
imagine?
big on their
Yeah.
constitution
Yeah,
Probably
the
right.
land
and
of
their
the free.
right to, you know, liberty, justice, and
Can you imagine a political
Right.
party bringing that in as a bill to be voted on?
for nothing?
You
Yeah,
might- you-
I
you-
suppose
we
so.
want to
It's like
tear
political
up the
suicide.
constitution
For no
and
reason.
surveil you all
Yeah.
the time.
Yeah. Now you need a
Yes,
false
you will.
flag event to be able to bring something like that.
Yeah,
False
I don't know.
flag.
Oh, there's all sorts of different, or whether they turn a blind eye, or you know, who knows? Yeah, there's lots of different ways it could or couldn't have happened, but definitely the outcome was shit.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
And we surveilled a lot in Australia as well. I believe all of our communications are all stored
Yeah.
in a
I've
facility.
heard that.
So if you've got any illusion that you can have a private conversation on the phone
Yeah.
or by text or by Telegram, Snapchat, whatever, it's pretty clear that you can't.
On a podcast.
Podcast.
We should
Well,
talk.
I mean, we're openly broadcasting this.
We should
so
openly
everyone's
talk
really cool.
about crazy conspiracy
Uh,
theories.
yeah.
See how that goes.
Well, I mean, that's what we're doing today, isn't it? We're poking the bear and we're suggesting alternative theories for things.
Mm.
It's all just theoretical stuff.
It's
And
all
we're not-
theoretical.
we're not
We don't
trying
know
to
anything, I don't
offend
know.
people. It's just stuff
Yeah.
we've heard. and
It's all
interesting
stuff
to
that's
have
out there
interesting
already.
to have a chat
Yeah.
about.
Yeah.
It's out there. We're not
Because
making.
what sort of fucking world would you want to live in if you can't chat about shit?
Yeah.
Mm.
Kick the can around a little bit and
Yeah.
sort of
That
offer
is
some
very true.
alternative stuff. It's a pretty sad world if you can't talk about stuff freely.
Yeah. Well, false flags are a pretty big conspiracy, aren't they? Like,
What
pretty
is?
lit false flags having something like a 9/11.
Yeah, but a really
To
rich history
ram
of lots of
something
false flags happening and being proven.
Yeah. Well, there's the one. Let me just touch on this one briefly.
I tried to segue it for you.
The Reichstag building.
Haven't heard this at all, mate.
So
So
this
yeah,
is
tell me.
this is where Hitler became chancellor after this Reichstag building, where he so the Nazi Party at the time was small. The Communist Party in Germany was a lot bigger and had a majority of seats in Parliament. So the belief is that the Reichstag building was set on fire on purpose. They blamed an arsonist and they blamed communists.
Right.
And so communists were round up, they were interrogated, they were tortured, a lot of them were killed. And then that allowed Hitler to be voted then as the Chancellor, which I think is the President or Prime Minister of Germany. And he then perpetuated a lot of public and political fear, and then that enabled him to draw up an act called the Decree of the Reich President for the Protection of the People and State. So very similar to a president bringing out like a Patriot Act or something. This is a decree to protect the people and state, and therefore allowed it legal to kill or lead and torture these communists. That then allowed more seats available in government automatically for these Nazi parties to then take a majority seat in the parliament.
So he creeps and gets complete control, and then the rest is history.
Yeah. That's
So
but whether that's true or not, because people had reports of hearing glass break at the back of the Reichstag building, but who's to say that wasn't the perpetrators of setting it up?
Yeah. You always got to look at who's got the most to gain, don't you, from things, especially like abnormal things.
Yeah.
It pays to look at things from all angles.
It does.
With a clean set of eyes.
Yeah. And that just could have been an opportunistic event there where Hitler's just taken an opportunity. What's the saying go? Never let a crisis go to waste.
Yeah, absolutely.
It could have just been vandals and someone setting that on fire, and he's just taken advantage.
Yeah.
It could be a setup.
Yeah.
What do they say? Never let a good crisis go to waste.
Didn't I just say that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Echo in here.
Like I was getting tired. I went night shift last night. That's
Funny.
cool.
But it's interesting. It really intrigues me, all of them.
Yeah.
It's whether they're true or not, or whether they're fake or whether they're true. It's interesting. Like
the history of the world is
just-
fascinating.
yeah,
mate.
it's
Like,
hi-
there's
it's-
so
it is
many
part of the history,
things,
yeah.
especially around warfare and some political power and power struggles. There's so much.
Have you got any more on your list?
Yeah.
No. I think we've.
I got two more of that real quick.
Yeah, go for it, man. We've got plenty of time.
Operation Lockstep. So just the whole world control. Klaus Schwab.
Oh, yeah.
Operation
Oh, yeah.
Lockstep. Have you guys read that document?
No.
So to do with all the COVID stuff and the sort of seizing of control and the loss of rights, and you'll own nothing and you'll be happy and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
A few years ago, when COVID was first kicking off and everyone was really kicking up a stink, and Klaus Schwab was big in the whole locking everything down, there was reference to a document from the World Economic Forum called Operation Lockstep.
Yeah.
And essentially it was a little bit like the very convenient simulation that they had of the COVID outbreak just before it happened. Well, Operation Lockstep was a theoretical, got my fingers in the air, document, which essentially talks about a world where you've got tightening governmental control and a loss of civil rights. And they sort of talk about how this would be bought in. And essentially, if you can find Operation Lockstep, it's very hard to find on the internet now. It's essentially gone from being, you Google it, it'll pop up automatically, and it's like probably butcher this, but let's say a 30 or 40 page document that talks about this, again, scenario of everything you're seeing happen today. It's pretty much playing out like Operation Lockstep said it would, except it's very hard to find now. Google doesn't really exist too much.
Wow. But isn't that so true though? Because the whole response to COVID was all these countries that have no significant alignment with health were in lockstep in their response.
The same thing.
Yeah.
It's essentially just like, your rights inching away, and so it's a theoretical document, but it's quite interesting to read. You can draw the sort of comparisons to it.
Yeah. it was a lockstep in every aspect. So masks, lockdown,
Massively.
every country had the same. Were in the same lockstep process dealing with that COVID
Yeah.
pandemic.
We look at newsreaders from all around the world all saying exactly the same phrases, the same sentences, the same catchwords, all at the same time.
Yeah,
There was clearly some worldwide
What I found,
collaboration.
there was
Yeah.
definitely.
Sponsored
What
by
I found-
Pfizer.
what I found funny was there's never, well, the opposition parties never miss an opportunity to chip the current government. You know what I mean? And this didn't happen.
Yep.
Liberal, Labor, they were in lockstep.
Mm.
They were all running the same thing. I couldn't work it out.
Yeah,
Yep.
Surely there's half the population that want to go the other way.
yeah.
So this is a good way to win political points. You look at the voice vote we've just had. In the end, that seemed more about the Liberal Party being able to chip the Labor Party. Like, you didn't do this properly. You didn't consult. You didn't do this. You're not telling us anything. But they never had any of that with COVID. Never. No one ever went. A mask's okay. Liberal government. Where are you getting that from?
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, where's your evidence?
Where's your evidence?
Yeah.
And
There was no questioning.
nobody has any evidence.
Mm.
And you can't.
There's some pretty good evidence now. There's a Cochrane review, which is like a gold standard review saying that masks don't work. But yeah, we're still made to wear masks. Or it can be, we can be made to wear masks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Quite interesting.
Yeah.
Well, that's just a whole reminder to the public to be fearful
Mm.
of other humans and viruses. It's a visible fear prompt,
Yeah,
a mask.
exactly. And it's also evidence of some of the freedoms that we've lost.
Yeah,
You've lost the ability to have your own bodily autonomy with regards to, do I wear a mask? Do I not wear a mask?
yep.
Back when it was happening, do I choose to get a vaccine or not? Well, that was pretty much taken away from people, and they'll argue that it wasn't. But if you're playing with someone's livelihood, I'd argue that it was.
Mm.
You've got to support your family and whatnot.
Yeah.
Pay the bills. If you can't work, that's a pretty big deal for most people, since
Yeah.
most people aren't independently wealthy.
Yeah.
Freedom of travel was lost. Really, even freedom of speech. Like there was footage of that mum in Victoria getting rounded up for trying to organise just a protest,
Yeah.
not inciting violence or anything like that, but just saying people should get out and protest.
Yeah.
Getting arrested in her own house.
Yeah. In the middle of the night in her nightgown.
Yeah, crazy. So we really lost a bit, I think,
What? And
during that.
yeah, I totally agree, mate. And what? And the other little conspiracy that you can try to convince people of was before COVID actually started. What was that summit that they had? It was Summit 21 or something.
No, events
Event 201.
201. Yeah.
Event 201. That was actually a whole melodrama,
Mhm.
a practice run through
Yep.
of what a pandemic.
Real time simulation
Real
of
time, yeah.
well, not real time, but
Yeah.
Coronavirus from an animal.
Yeah. And they actually had like actors acting out what media would say and deliver, and exactly same as what we copped in real life.
yeah, they definitely had a playbook, didn't they?
They did.
Mm.
But you mentioned that to someone, and you're a conspiracy theorist.
Yeah.
But it actually happened.
Strange coincidence. Really.
Very
A lot of
strange.
coincidences.
So, mate, you said you had two. You mentioned Operation Lockstep.
Just again banging on about my simulation theory because it really
Oh yeah.
interests me.
Yeah. Well, hit us with that, man. I'm interested.
So essentially, a guy came up with this hypothesis back, I don't know, a little while ago, probably 10 or 15 years ago or something like that. I think he wrote it for like a university thesis or a university, came up with it in academia. And it's essentially the concept that, a little bit like the Matrix movie, if you think about that sort of concept of you're living in a reality, but it's not the reality that your body or whatever is located in. So it's this concept that essentially, if you believe that one day AI or computers could become good enough that they could simulate a reality that you couldn't tell from the real world. So if you buy into the concept that one day, maybe not now, maybe in 100 years or 1,000 years time or whatever, computers could get to a point where they could generate a reality that would be imperceivable to what we're in now. If you believe that's a possibility, then this guy has essentially said that there is a good chance that maybe the reality that we're currently living in now is a simulation, and your spirit, body, whatever, is essentially in another time, but you're in a simulation, or you are just in a computer simulation.
So is that saying that AI has already become so technologically advanced that it's created this simulation already?
I don't think they specify AI, but definitely just computer technology.
Right.
So it's almost like you might just be a video game avatar that's been programmed to have like self-identity, the illusion of free choice, but maybe you essentially don't.
Yeah.
And essentially there'll just be multiple spin-offs of this reality. Look, it sounds crazy, but there's some very intelligent people who give it a lot of credence.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm interested in it.
Who knows about the simulation though? We don't know, obviously.
Well,
we don't know we're in a
this
simulation.
entire world would just be a simulation if we're in a simulation.
Then
no one's in on it.
No.
This is just a simulation.
But who's running it?
Well, so they call like base reality. So there'll be one actual reality. So say we're in base reality now, which I think we probably are, but there's always a vague chance that we could be in a simulation. But say we're in base reality, you're a computer programmer. Computers, obviously AI and computer technology is moving at an exponential rate. So it's getting more and more advanced every year. So imagine that in this base reality we're in another 100 years, like you think about where computers were 50 years ago, they're basically nowhere. You think about like how advanced we are now and some of the software and some of the AI. Imagine another 100 years time we're that much more advanced and you're a computer programmer. All of a sudden you can make a very advanced simulation. So you can program, think about playing like Grand Theft Auto. Well, you can program all those characters in there to just go off on their own, have this illusion of free will and have a consciousness. Well, if you're in the simulation, you are that little avatar.
Well, it's like that movie Ready Player One.
Yeah.
Have you seen that?
Yes, I have.
So
yeah.
Society's maybe what you taught then as the base. What do you say? The base.
Like base level reality or base level reality. Yep.
Reality.
Yep.
Society has deteriorated to a point where humans now escape into a simulation.
But they know they're in the simulation, right?
They do.
Yeah.
But there are also characters and personalities within that simulation that are different to their normal characters and personalities in the base reality.
Yes. Yeah, you can be a elf or a wizard or whatever you want to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, or a superhero or something like that.
Yeah. I guess in order to even buy into it, you've got to project forward in terms of technology, like massively. Like at the moment, with the technology we've got and the sort of simulated reality and virtual reality we have, there's probably an argument that if a baby was born from day one and you put like earmuffs on it and you put a headset on it and you could somehow keep it alive, that baby would see the projection of that thing as its reality.
Right. But
Like
if
the
they
baby
had
never
to
took
take
its
it
mask.
off,
Well, yeah, if it had to take it off, but that's not the argument.
right?
Yeah.
What do they? How they sleep? Okay. Yeah. All right.
So let's say that we're now living in a simulation.
Mm-hmm.
That would therefore mean that there's another base reality somewhere.
There would have to be an initial base reality.
Yeah, that has already come up with the technology to create the simulation we're now in.
Correct.
Yep.
Yeah. So the base reality. So we're living in what we see as 2023 on Earth.
Yep.
Maybe base reality is something a whole lot different.
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah.
And so, is this a bit of a juxtaposition, if that's the right word, that in our simulation we're actually creating our own AI superiority technology?
Well, that's the argument. So, like, then in the simulation, your 2023 keeps advancing on to the point where you're advanced enough to make a simulation, and then there's a spin-off from that simulation.
There's a
to the next
simulation
one.
within a simulation.
So there would be all these different, like looking in a mirror and a reflection, and you can see the reflection back, and there's another, and it sort of goes forever. You know what I mean? Like this sort of perpetual.
If my head exploded.
So then there's all these. There's like 3 tenets that you have to buy into in order for this, I guess, philosophy or theory to work. One of them is that I don't know all 3, so I'm butchering it, but one of them is this belief that technology could get that advanced that you could make a simulation that where the sort of avatars in it would believe that they're real people. And then there's 2 others, and if you buy into those 3 things, then they do the maths, and they're like, it's almost improbable that you're in base level reality. You're already in a simulation. You just don't realise it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. But these are high level thinking dudes, like astrophysicists and philosophers and stuff like that. And they get right into all of it. And I'm absolutely butchering this, but I'm interested in it, and I'm not intelligent enough, and I'm not invested enough in it to explain it in a more intelligent way. But if people are interested, Google simulation theory. I think Elon Musk talks about it a fair bit. That Neil deGrasse Tyson talks about it a fair bit. All the high level guys all talk about it, and they all give it some credence. Like, yeah, this could just be a simulation.
I guess that movie The Matrix is all about that, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah.
But they know they're in a simulation.
Well, not until they get woken up by somebody.
Yeah, but the rest of the people,
the whole world,
they don't know they are.
don't know. They're just avatars walking around in this fake world, and there's one or two people that get woken up because someone goes into their base of reality and pulls the plug out. And they go, oh fuck, hang on a second.
Because Neo was one of them. He didn't know that he was in a simulation until what's his name? The dark guy.
Morpheus.
Lawrence Fishburne.
Morpheus.
It's Morpheus.
He pulled him out of the simulation into the base reality.
Look, it's extremely fanciful, but it's interesting to think about because it is one of those ones that makes your brain explode a little bit.
It does.
You go, well, it's not 100% not possible because you don't know what you don't know.
That's right.
It's a little bit too much for me.
Yeah.
So this whole world out here, imagine it. So if I look out the window and I see a tree pixelate, what the fuck? The tree just the simulation just had a little glitch.
Yeah.
Do you see that? You often see trees pixelate.
No, but I'm just saying, if you did,
Jesus.
there's your proof that
Right.
we're in a simulation. You know, like say something pixelated. So us sitting here talking.
So how do you
So I'm an avatar
yeah
of someone else in the base reality.
So I've heard a few people talking about some of the more nuanced things about it, and they talk about like, you know, how you think about how the universe is infinite and it's expanding, but then you obviously can't really imagine. Like, imagine the universe is expanding. What is past the expansion? You know how your brain just explodes, like you can't think about it? So they're almost like, well, that's the computer creating the universe is expanding because it's being created by a computer in the background.
Yeah.
It's populating more and more. And then the other Einstein, well, not theory, it's been proven to be true, is that time will very slowly speed up or slow down in the presence of gravity. It's like when you get closer to a black hole, funny things happen with time. And they say that that's got to do with the people that talk about simulation theory have got to do with time starts to slow down a tiny bit in that presence because the computer can't keep up with the creating the simulation. So it very slowly messes with time.
So in this one, birds aren't real, and the Earth is flat.
Well, it's whatever you want it to be, I guess.
Out.
You've got the illusion of free choice, so you can think whatever you want.
And why did the person in the base reality create you?
Yeah,
CJ?
why me?
Well, maybe you're just a random avatar that gets filled in like in a computer game. There's always side guys. They don't do anything. They've got no.
I'm just going to make a 5'7" guy to walk around.
You're not the big boss.
Be an idiot.
You're not the gets battled in the last level of the game. You're just one of the plebs that gets shot.
Yeah, because and the kids talk about that in their video games. You're a RPL, a UPL or something, an unimportant person.
Yeah.
Or something. You're in the background of this matrix, and they're the main characters playing this game.
It's like in the Earth. You've got all these major players and these big things that do amazing things. Everyone else is really just a pleb. Just going by, you know, you're not even a footnote in history. You're nothing.
Well, that's true.
You live, you die.
Unimportant players.
That's
You've
true.
got a very
Anyway,
small circle of friends who might remember you for a very short amount of time, but then eventually you'll all die, and in the broader historic context, in 10 generations, no one knows this conversation ever happened. Our friendships, your whole family.
Recorded.
Well, yeah, but is it?
Oh.
What's going to happen? Do you know what I mean? Like, what happened in the 14th century to your family? No one knows. Like, maybe you know, I doubt it.
Don't.
Like, because it's just unimportant shit filling in,
Time.
what the world is.
Okay.
Trees are growing and fucking grass is getting slightly higher and fish are in streams and shit, but what does it all matter? Like,
how do you explain
and are there
smells
multiple
and
simulations of
sights
multiple planets, and does that tie in with aliens, and does that tie in with like interdimensional travel? And yeah, you can really bend your noodle with it, which is why I thought I'd mention it, because
So going back to the start, where our pyramids and our ancient cities were possibly run by alien beings, maybe they're in the base reality and they've set up this program
Yeah.
and they're sitting back watching us, and sometimes they drop into our simulation, and we go, "Who the fuck's that?"
Yeah.
And then they get in trouble by their superiors because they interfered with the simulation.
Maybe there's a simulation that's running out ancient Egypt right now. There's a whole bunch of people dragging rocks to make a pyramid somewhere.
Yeah,
That simulation is running because someone wanted to run that simulation.
yeah,
Maybe there's a simulation of an advanced alien race with shit we can't even imagine, who sometimes pops into this simulation just to fuck with us or whatever,
Yeah,
which is an alien encounter or a ghost or a fucking spirit or an entity or whatever. Like, I don't know. It's all just fucking around, isn't it?
This
It's
would
got
be a
like-
great conversation to have over a few
you wanna-
doobs.
Yeah, I was going to say, you
No?
want to be a fucking stoner or something.
Yeah.
You're like, oh man,
Well,
it's been in my mind, man.
You could talk about that being a
My hand's
theory
not real.
of evolution, isn't it? That monkeys found mushrooms and ate them and changed our brain synapses, and
There you go. Yep.
but that was just a simulation in some crazy world of
Yeah.
what would happen if the monkeys ate these mushrooms.
Maybe computers took over a long, long time ago.
Oh, far out.
And you're just inside a computer and this is all just a simulation. Maybe.
Yeah,
Maybe,
maybe your real name's Tron.
maybe.
Mm.
Well, if we've still
Alright.
got anyone listening,
Yeah.
Yeah.
appreciate you sticking with us.
If anyone's interested, go and Google simulation theory
Yeah.
and someone will explain it all.
Yeah.
I'm gonna Google the moon landing. I'm gonna look at some of those videos.
Listen to Elon Musk talk about simulation theory because he's quite a fan of it. He talks about it with Rogan. They go into it reasonably deeply.
Oh, okay.
And Rogan's got a couple of interesting podcasts talking about simulation theory.
Really?
He explains it a lot better than I can.
Yeah, right.
Because I'm really just a very peripheral. I've come across it, I've read it a couple of times, and that's it. I'm not into all the nuanced shit, but these guys go right into it. Some of the shit does make you think.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Alright.
Cool.
Oh.
yeah,
Well, that's a long one. We
That's
might have to
about
split this one in two, eh? There's
Two-parter.
so many more conspiracies we could talk about.
Yeah, we
Be
didn't
here
even
all day.
talk about the Denver International Airport.
Oh.
Ooh. Go on, mate. Give us the 5-minute
Come on,
rundown.
give us a rundown.
Nah, we'll do it another time.
It's not a simulation, is it?
No? Yeah. Get it another time? Nobody's listening now. Simulation theory.
Yeah, I scared all the people off with that garbage.
Yeah, everyone shut up.
So should we do another chat with some more
Oh, yeah.
I
I reckon.
conspiracy theories then?
Yeah, yeah.
This could be a three-parter.
Three-parter.
Right on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Find some more.
All right. So we have to talk about the Denver airport
Yep.
because that's an interesting one.
That's pretty interesting.
Mm.
Yeah.
We could touch on adrenochrome,
Yeah. Yeah.
Pizzagate.
Secret societies.
MH370's got some conspiracy
Yes.
stuff behind it. I've got some stuff associated with that. I have to brush up on it.
Yeah.
Some
Oh,
shit
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Okay.
How the fuck could a plane just disappear?
there.
Three-parter.
Huh?
Three-part series. Alright. Cool.
Yeah.
We'll kick it off with
Come
the
on.
Denver International Airport next
Yeah.
time. Alright.
All right.
TBC to be continued.
Yeah. Good to see you,
Stuff.
boys.
Yeah,
Good
cheers,
work,
lads.
fellas.